morning, everybody, and happy Wednesday. My name is Asia Nasir. I am the founder and executive director of Jessica Cares and also the host of Conversations with Asia. We are launching something a little bit different. As you know, our talk show is usually a very extensive conversation, but this time we figured we didn't want to do it like once a month where you miss us and in between there's some things and conversations that we really need to be talking about. So we are launching for the very first time Wake Up Wednesdays. And so today we're going to be talking about a topic that I think is extremely relevant to what's happening specifically to teen girls and to women. And we want to kind of just delve into a conversation to talk about unleashing your voice, finding your voice and being able to use it for something positive. So I think we see a lot of talk shows and we see a lot of reality shows, I should say, that have young women, teen girls speaking out, but sometimes not in a positive way. And therefore, it sheds a negative light for young girls and women to be able to unleash their voice and to be able to use it for something that would be a benefit not only to themselves, but for those around them. So today, I'm very, very happy, proud to bring on a guest that I've known for a few years, who is someone who is not afraid to utilize her voice as well. She is a native of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She is a young lady who I think can relate to both our teen girls and the women that follow, our platform of empowerment through Jessica Cares. And her name is Lujane Abdul-Shahid. Welcome, Lujane.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good
Thank you for having
morning.
me.
Yes, when I thought about, this topic, I was like, who could I have on this show that I feel would be a role model or someone that, people can look up to or look to see that, they utilize their voice, but they utilize it for something positive. And that's something, especially within the Black and Brown community, can share and look to as someone who utilizes their voice. So let's just get right into our conversation today. And as they get to know you, the viewers and those that are watching get to know you, they'll see why I wanted to have you on our show today.
Okay.
So, as I mentioned, when I was looking about the things that you do and, and how it relates to our topic today, which is unleashing your voice and utilizing your voice, you have a podcast.
I do have a podcast. I started a podcast this year with my best friend. It's called the Raw and Relatable Podcast, and that's also our Instagram tag name as well. We basically like to get on the phone and get on the phone for hours and have these deep conversations. And we felt like a lot of our conversations that we have and the things that we like come to conclusion about, they're not talked about in a safe space. It's always like propaganda for Muslim women to have these deep conversations to the extent that we are in being actually raw and relatable. So we felt like that was something that was needed for our age range or even for the younger girls to be able to feel comfortable within themselves. And so we launched a podcast this year. So yeah.
Great. I love the fact that you said you're talking about topics that are typically not talked about. And I think that kind of lends to the problem of why some women, and especially young girls who are still trying to find themselves, are not talking about things that they should be talking about, but yet they feel on the inside. Can you share with some of the viewers, like, what are some of the topics that you and your best friend have shared on Raw and Relatable?
It's very new. So we've shared about relationships, kind of like dating, courting. We've talked about that on a small scale. We have more to come about that. We've talked about ourselves and our upbringing and how that can be relatable simply growing up as Black Muslim women, but even just women in general and the things that we took from that. And to think we got some feedback from people being like, wait, I experienced those kind of things, or maybe that kind of triggered me, and maybe there's some things I need to do within myself, reach deeply to heal that I didn't realize was bothering me. So those are just a few of the things that we have touched on. We still have so many things to talk about: womanhood and activism and all that, all the things that are going on in the world and things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, working women, entrepreneurship, all that. So we have a lot to come.
Yeah, and I think as I mentioned before, these are topics that women, they kind of talk about within their friends, They only talk about it with those that they know, but they don't utilize their same voice, their opinions, their suggestions. As you was mentioning, the ability for activism to be able to evoke change. So I want to talk, I did some research as to why young girls, teen girls do not speak up, and why women in general, even as they get older and have the ability or the freedom to be able to speak more freely, why they withhold. So I wanted to share some of the statistics as it relates to the teens and then the women. So
Okay.
when I was researching why teen girls don't utilize their voice, I mean, we see the videos on YouTube, and
Mm-hmm.
we see them fighting, and we see the talk shows like the Jerry Springers and the reality shows, Bad Girls Club and the Love and Hip Hop. You
Mm-hmm.
see them utilizing their voice, but it's typically not. It's not shedding a positive light when they're
Right.
utilizing their voice. So it gives the impression that teen girls or young women are using their voice, but not for something positive. But where, as it relates to positivity, they said that teenagers typically do not speak up because they feel that what they have to say, or adults or those around them, will not think that what they have to say is important. What I also found out was that, and this is why I created the platform Jessica Cares, is that many of the young teenagers suffer with a lack of self worth. They don't feel like they have anything worthy to say. And then third is they don't want to be judged, or they feel like they're going to be misunderstood. So why even talk about it?
Right.
Especially when they're talking about things of activism or wanting to evoke change, they feel like they're going to be judged. And so they don't speak up. Then when it came to women, so let's just take that. These are young girls feeling this way.
Right.
They grow up to be women, and then this was the reason the statistics showed that women were not talking because they didn't want to be perceived as dominant.
Okay.
Like they go in rooms, they show up in rooms, platforms where where there's men and other people, and they're like, "Oh, I'm just going to stay quiet because I don't want to be perceived as dominant."
Okay.
Two, goes back to the same thing of not having confidence in the sense of self-worth,
Mm-hmm.
and they fear retaliation. Well, if I speak up, I'm going to be retaliated on. I want you to share, like, what are your thoughts about that? What are your thoughts about young girls growing up feeling misunderstood or feeling like they're not worthy? I want to hear, since you talk about, things that are raw and relatable, what do you think about that?
I think being a young girl, it just really depends on the upbringing and the space that you're allowed it by the people around you. I just recently really discovered that I have been allowed a space from my parents, both of them, to be who I am and to be true to myself. I wasn't diminished in the things that I wanted to do and how I wanted to be. And I actually grew up really shy. And they let me be in that. And at times I'm like, well, why did you guys not push me in certain ways? But in certain ways, it's like they did. And I pushed back, like, wait, no, no, no. But I think that it's okay to be in that space, to be shy, to kind of get to know who you are. But when there is something that you see is wrong, I always spoke out. And I don't know where that comes from. It could come from the fact that I'm the older sister and I had younger brothers and I had to
Yeah.
watch after them. It could come from that. It could come from the fact that my mom always spoke out. It just really depends. I don't know why. I don't know the scientific reason why women um, close their voices, but obviously, like as history goes on and on and on, and still even in 2024, women's voices are not valued. Um,
Mhm.
Simply, like we said, in the workplace, at school, you're being told no. You're like, no, you can't do this because you're a girl. You can't participate in these sports. You can't. Um, don't speak out too much, or we're always looked at for our looks and things like that, and those things cause pressure, peer pressures, and allow women to be vulnerable but in a negative way. And then if they don't have certain, I guess, influences in their lives, again, their parents or auntie or somebody around them who's really like, hey, rallying around them, then they don't feel comfortable as a young woman, feel comfortable speaking in those spaces. I think as an adult, it takes going from a young woman to an adult, it
Yeah.
is your responsibility to get yourself out of those comfort zones. push yourself in places that are going to make you feel uncomfortable that will help you flourish. I will say, from example, because I said, like, I was shy growing up. I was up under my mom. I didn't want to talk in certain spaces. People were like, wait, why doesn't she talk? And I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I don't,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be looked at as I've said something stupid, or I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
feel like what I'm saying doesn't make sense, or you guys just don't understand. I've learned to be in a space of being like, no, I'm going to make you understand what I'm saying because I have a
Mm.
voice and I'm going to use it. I never looked at it as being dominant. I think that once I became very immersed in my career and my workspace, that forced me out of my comfort zone. And I will applaud my boss at the time because they would make sure everybody's voice was heard at the corporation that I'm at. And they would always say, like, go around the table, round tables. Do you have something to say? Do you have something to say? What is your concern? I want your opinion on it. Like, give me your opinion. Kind of forcibly but gently pulling it out of me. And it made me in a room full of people where before I used to be like, oh my God, I'm going to throw up. I can't speak. I felt comfortable of being able to speak up and say, well, no, I noticed this is wrong. I know what this is. I know what that is. And that helps you to flourish, not only in your personal life, but in your career. So I do understand the retaliation and all of that in the workspace, but
Mm-hmm.
I do still feel like it's important. But again, having that support and feeling validated is what women need across the board. And that's why I love Jessica Cares, because I feel like you give that validation for girls to speak up and to feel comfortable in these spaces. Even if they don't have that at home, you need that somewhere. And you need it to be
Right.
an unbiased opinion when you do have these strong opinions or these difficult places or spaces that you're put in to speak to. You need to be able to speak to somebody who's unbiased and who's understanding.
I love that. I love everything that you just said. And it's important. Some of us aren't born or put in situations at a young age where we feel free to be able to speak. But I love the fact that you said, even though you had the freedom, you kind of had to grow into
Mm-hmm.
that. And then when put in a situation where your voice was validated, it helped you to be able to do it. So your surroundings and who you choose to be around can also assist, and that support system being able to assist that. So being that now you are comfortable, in sharing your voice, sharing your opinions, and wanting to see things change, what are you lending your voice to today?
I lend my voice to a lot of social issues that are going on. I feel like it's really important, but um, Black Lives Matter, anything that's happened in regards to that, anything that's just happening in regards to people being oppressed,
Mhm.
anything in regards to women's rights and speaking up, um, everything that's going on that I don't agree with. And I simply go off of my feeling, like what's in my heart. I truly speak on issues that I feel that are in my heart. I can't not. It's kind of like a weird feeling to not speak on it. It's like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
Like I'm a woman, but I'm not going to speak about women's reproductive rights. That's kind of crazy. I'm a Black woman, and I'm not going to speak about the rights of African Americans who are being killed. Like to me, that's weird, just for me. And
Mhm.
everybody doesn't feel that way, but that's just something
Mhm.
that I feel a way about. It would be weird for me to not speak about the Muslim ban that they tried to push and implement onto us, because I'm Muslim, and so it's just not right. I grew up learning to want for others what you want for yourself, and to
Right.
forbid what is wrong and permit what is right, as um, that's taught throughout my childhood. So
Mhm.
I genuinely live by those things, and I didn't realize how implemented they were. And I never thought I would be the person to be up here like
Right.
speaking on so many issues, or really just like, I don't care if people think that it's annoying or are judging
Mhm.
me for like, here she is again posting this or posting that. I just genuinely feel like I have to, because if I don't speak up for those people, I'm going to be questioned about that, or I'm going to be put under the scope, or just simply off I don't feel good about myself. Um,
Mhm.
because I see something that's happening that's wrong. And it could be near, it could be far. I've always had the voice, even personally, privately, to speak on things for people that I care about. And I just feel like we're humans. So I'm going to speak about human rights, basic human rights for us to live.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly.
Everything is a basic right to live, to walk down the street and not feel like you're being attacked just because of the color of your skin or because you have on a hijab. I feel like that's important to speak on.
Absolutely. I love that. And you mentioned something that, I want to kind of delve into. So you were talking earlier about, you feel that young girls finding their voice, a lot of that has to do with the support system that they have at home or the support system that be even externally, whether it be through school, a teacher, as growing up as an adult, moving
Mhm.
into adulthood, maybe having a boss, a mentor, someone to advocate for you to step outside your comfort zone.
Right.
You mentioned something else now that I think, um, possibly helps with that, and you mentioned your faith. Do you feel that your faith played a role in, although being shy at one point, being the catalyst to that, that switch that went off when given the opportunity? Did you feel that your faith plays a role in that sense of responsibility that you have to unleash your voice?
Absolutely. I feel like it's such a big part of who I am, so it's no way that it couldn't play a role in the way that I utilize, the way that I think, the way that I move. Like, there's no way that it wouldn't. I feel like because of my faith, it's grounded me to also see things from different perspectives. And again, to want for people what you want for yourself, that's something that's faith based. Not always, but that's just how I grew up with that being a part of my faith. Like, you want for your brother, literally your younger brother, whoever, what you want for yourself. You don't be selfish. You don't be, and I just think, looking at things at the bigger picture, would I want to see me in that position? No. Would I want that to be my family member? No. Would I want that to be somebody I know and care about? Absolutely not. Um, so my faith has definitely played a big part in it. Just the things that I've learned throughout the years, and the way that I've grown just in my own faith outside of what I've learned, just as because even though I learned it as a kid, again, I wasn't speaking out on social
Right.
justice issues, and honestly, my family wasn't speaking out publicly on social justice issues. Maybe in certain ways, maybe that in a way that I didn't know because I was a child, but there's something there within myself that makes me say, hey, I'm gonna speak out on it. But that's just in general, in regards to everything in life, whether it's at a workplace issue, something I noticed, whether
Hmm.
it is a social issue, whether it is something happening on the street, and it's like, hold up, wait a second, that's not okay. I'm going to speak out against it. Just That's just
Absolutely.
who I am. But yes, my faith absolutely plays a big role.
Yeah. So what I'm seeing and what we're talking about just in this short period of time, it has a lot to do with the foundation. And
Hmm.
even if your foundation is not supportive, I heard you say earlier that at some point you have to make the decision to say, regardless of whether I was supported before, or regardless of, whether I felt that my voice lent to something important, you have to make a decision to say, if you see something wrong, you got to speak up. You got to step outside your comfort zone,
Yeah.
and then possibly surround yourself or try to find people that will support you if in your internal situation you don't find that. What what suggestions, in conclusion, what suggestions in this wake up, like, I want women, and this is why I'm doing this, is I want women to be woke. I want women to not dull these thoughts, like, I don't speak up, I don't talk. I don't want teen girls going to school, seeing things happening to themselves, or as you mentioned, to someone else, and feeling
Hmm.
like they don't have a voice, they don't have something to say. What are some suggestions that you would give someone who may not feel that they're being supported at home, or being misunderstood, or feeling like they're going to be misunderstood? Women who are like, I'm not going to go to work and speak up in fear of retaliation, and all of the things that we mentioned before. What suggestions would you give them, or parents who are listening to this and saying, I never really even thought about this, as it relates to my children? What suggestions do you have for young women and adult women?
I think, well, for parents, just be more understanding and supportive. And I'm not a parent, so I'll say that first. I'm not going to give you parental advice, but just from a child's perspective, because I've had to have the hard conversations with my parents. Just be a little bit more supportive and understanding of where your child is, and know that you've went through that as well. They're going through it too. So
Yeah.
just knowing who your kid is, just knowing who a child is in general, is just the key to being able to help them through whatever they're going through. So I applaud my parents in that. Thank you. For girls and women trying to find their voice, I say find your community. Find true, genuine friendship. Find true, genuine human connections, whether it's at work and you can really bond with somebody, which a lot of times people don't feel like they can, which is understandable. But there's all kinds of different groups out here. There's networking groups. There are community groups. There are classes you can go to, whether it's in your church, whether it's in your mosque, whether it's wherever you go, whether it's a yoga class, whatever it is that you do. Find people that genuinely you connect with their energy and have conversations and see if, where that leads to, because somebody may give you something genuine that you didn't think of. You might feel comfortable having a personal conversation with somebody you don't know. And that's okay, because they might give you something that you are lacking. And we need to be more open with being open and talking to each other as women, and being safe and putting ourselves in the safe spaces that we have. And if we do not have a safe space, be comfortable with creating one. Whether that is,
love that.
Whether it's your social media, whether it is you write down something, you journal, definitely journal, because that's super important to help you, to help you feel free
To
to
articulate
release.
your thoughts and
Yeah,
think through your thoughts.
exactly.
Absolutely.
Right. And to know where you were and where you are and where you're going. That's super important. So definitely, if you do not journal, I think you need to implement that wholeheartedly. But for your people, you should definitely find people that you connect with and be genuine. And we have to be more comfortable and vulnerable with being like, hey, I really like you. Like, I want to connect. Let's link up. Let's network. Let's talk and build sisterhoods, because we don't always have it. We have small friend groups. Everybody gets busy, and it's okay to get new friends or to have people, just new associates that you connect with. And we always need that. We need people. It takes a village, right? So
absolutely,
the village will be there if you create it. And if you're open to having that space, then you can make space for whatever you need to. That's the best advice.
So if you find that, if you see the void, fill that void. I love what you were, talking about. If you don't see that safe space, create the safe space. Be the change that you want to see. We hear that term said all the time from Gandhi, but some people, it just becomes cliche. So I love the suggestions that you just created. And for those that are watching, in conclusion, I just want to share some additional things just for food for thought, in creating what Lujane was just talking about, and stepping outside your comfort zones. For our teen girls and for those that that are adolescent, does your school have a debate team? That's a great platform for you to be able to utilize your voice, to be able to articulate your thoughts, to be able to be put in uncomfortable situations where it's like, how do I defend how I feel? Do I have thought-provoking comments and conversation with people, so that way, wherever I go and what room I step into, I can feel comfortable, because I'm putting myself in situations where we have to talk about those uncomfortable, as you mentioned, those tough conversations, right? So debate teams is a great thing. So if you have a debate team in your school, think about joining it, especially if you're an introvert or you feel like you have something to talk about, but you're afraid to. A debate team is great. Journaling, as you just mentioned, is an amazing outlet for you to be able to find your voice, because you can go back and read it and say, hey, that's some really powerful stuff that I just wrote there, right? Reading is another one. I love to read. And if you're someone who doesn't like to read, I mean, reading has kind of, flipping the pages is not as popular, but there's audiobooks. So in your day-to-day, you're doing your chores or whatever it is, educate yourself on topics, because the more educated you become on different topics, regardless of what it is, you're going to find your passion for something. Like, I really want to lend my voice to that, or I feel this is not being discussed enough. And as you mentioned, Jane, creating that space for people to be able to speak. For adults, there's a platform called Toastmasters. Toastmasters is a nationally known speaking network where they actually teach people who are afraid to do public speaking, which if anyone doesn't know, they say aside from death, that is the number one fear of people, which is public speaking. You utilizing your voice, finding your voice. Toastmasters, they have local chapters all over the world, and they challenge you on a local level to be able to speak just on simple topics, and then it elevates from there. And Jessica Cares participated in it for our teen girls, because they have a teen program as well for teen girls to be able to hone in on their voice, find their voice, master their thought process, like journaling, and be able to actually speak on different topics that typically you would not have found yourself speaking about. So there are platforms, there are community, as you mentioned, network. Find that network for yourself. And I'm a parent, so I'll speak on parents. Create that platform for your children, whether it's male or female. Create that platform for your children. Ask them questions, and give them that open door policy to be able to speak to you. And even if they're talking about things that you necessarily don't agree with, create the platform for them to be able to speak. Because if they shut down and if they feel that this is not a safe place at home, they're definitely not going to find that there's a safe space for them outside. So they're not going to talk about things that really they have a voice and they have the wherewithal to do something positive. They just won't. So Lujane, thank you so much for sharing. Can you tell the viewers, in conclusion, how they can find you, where they can find Raw and Relatable, and just being able to find you, to be able to see the activism and the social, issues that you are, publicly, sharing with others? How can they find you?
Um, well, Raw and Relatable on Instagram, it's the Raw and Relatable podcast. So you'll be able to find me there. You could also, my username for Instagram is my nickname, which is which is Luigi, but it's spelled kind of crazy. So if you go on Raw and Relatable, you'll be able to find my actual personal page on there, as well as my best friend's page. And then we also are right now streaming on Spotify. So if you look for us on Spotify, you'll be able to find the Raw and Relatable podcast. And we're looking into other platforms so that it will be up on other platforms. Right now we're on Spotify, and that's how you can find me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me this morning, for
Thank you
our
for
very
having
first,
me.
our very first Wake Up Wednesday. So I hope this wakes you up. I hope, I pray that this conversation was beneficial for those that were listening. And make sure that you're being impactful, even if it's not just with anyone else, just within yourself. Walk into spaces for yourself that's going to be impactful, so that when you walk into rooms, just your aura and your energy will be something positive for someone else. So thank you for joining me and Lujane for our very first Wake Up Wednesday. Stay tuned for next week, so that way you'll be able to sit up here and talk about another topic that we feel you'll be staying woke on Wednesday, and that you can share with those that you care about. So stay tuned for next episode. I will talk to you soon.